Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to you and welcome to the latest in our series of new Arab debates coming to you this time from Tunis. So what do you want, money or freedom? Perhaps when all's said and done, you want both. But in a number of countries, it's the government that's making that choice, allowing its citizens to make a fortune if they can, but insisting they shut their mouth when it comes to politics. Would you settle for that, especially here in Tunisia, where you overthrew the last dictator 3 years ago? Or do you believe that economic stability only develops under the rule of law and when the system is held to account by the people themselves? Just some of the underlying questions in our debate tonight on the motion, prosperity and stability are more important than freedom. Before we came on air, we took a vote among our studio audience. We'll take another vote at the end of the debate. We'll then compare the two to see to what extent our speakers may have been able to change your mind. Let me introduce those speakers. For the motion, Salim Moussa is a financier and co-founder of Tunisian American Young Professionals, a group that promotes investment between the US and Tunisia. He studied and worked in America for 6 years and returned here in 2012. And against the motion, Amna Gwilali is a researcher in the Middle East and North Africa division of Human Rights Watch. Before joining the group, she was an analyst at the International Criminal Court in The Hague and legal officer at the International Committee of the Red Cross here in Tunis. Ladies and gentlemen, that's our panel. Salim Moussa.
Yes.
You think prosperity and stability are more important than freedom. Let me just make sure I understand you. The ultimate goal is prosperity, and you say freedom is just a tool that's going to get you there.
Yes.
Freedom by itself, so the highest ambition in your life is a fat wallet and a big car to take you to the bank and back again. That's the summit of your desires in life.
I would say...
you don't deny it.
I don't deny it. I don't deny it. What I think is we all experienced the Tunisian revolution, and we were out on the street to fight against nepotism, corruption, government corruption, and as well as human rights. It's true that freedom is important, but the main goal that we were trying to reach is to get the economic stability. And to get that economic stability, having the freedom was a tool, one of many other tools that we use to reach our goal, which is reaching economic stability. So that's why...
How do you get economic freedom without a legal basis, without law and rights and freedoms being the foundation of your society structure? How do you get that prosperity? And more importantly, how do you get to keep it as well? What guarantees do you have unless you have the rule of law?
Okay, that's a very good question. I'd
love an answer.
Yes, you will get it. If you make government prosperous and you have economic stability, the government could definitely invest with that money that it earned into a workshop for freedom and explain what's the meaning of freedom. Because
that's going so well in China, isn't it? That's going so well in Russia. That's going so well in the Gulf countries, isn't it?
I think we are talking about the new Arab debate, so the debate is about
Arabs. But you're saying that if people get prosperity, if the government is prosperous, it's going to deal with freedom.
We are not trying to follow a specific example. We are Tunisian. We made our revolution out of those people, and it's not...
I'm saying your formula hasn't worked very well elsewhere, has it?
Well, if it doesn't work, it doesn't mean that it's not going to work. It could work. Why not?
Doesn't worry you that your opinion puts you on the same side as most of the dictators in the world these days?
No, I'm
not. Who say make your money and shut up about politics?
No,
that doesn't worry you?
The main motion is which is more important. I'm not saying that freedom is not important at all.
You just said it's a tool. That's pretty dismissive.
Yes, it's a tool.
It's pretty dismissive, isn't it?
It's an instrument. It's one of the instruments. It's not only the only instrument. So we need to understand that it is one of the tools. And this...
When Nelson Mandela went to prison, he wasn't dreaming of a big fat wallet.
Yes.
You know what he said? He said, "I have cherished the idea of a democratic and free society in which all people live together in harmony with equal opportunities." So he didn't put the big fat wallet at the summit of his desires. He put equality and fairness and human rights at the top of his agenda as the aims in society.
Okay.
You would seek to diminish that. That doesn't mean anything to you.
I'm not going to follow any specific example, whether it's China or South Africa. I think those are very to the extreme, and we as Tunisian, we are following our own path. You know, look at what's happening in the Middle East and the North African region. Tunisians were the first to demonstrate in the street and to get, you know, to be able to get jobs. And this is what prosperity is about, to get jobs, to be able to afford food, to afford basics of life. So
prosperity is about that, but freedom is something else, isn't it?
Yes.
Freedom is about fairness and justice.
It is.
And you don't think those are the proper foundations of a society?
They are one of the two. So it's a foundation, it's one of the foundation, but it's just a tool.
You have a saying in Arabic here in Tunisia about building on the head of a dead dog.
Okay.
Meaning that it's not a great foundation.
Okay.
You would build your society on the head of a dead dog with no foundation for justice, no foundation for rights and freedoms.
You might not know that, but I will enlighten you on a specific point, which is during the revolution, one of the main slogans, besides saying dégage, was خبز وماء وبن عليلة, which means like we are willing to dip slices of bread into water and eat it, but we do not. We were willing to do this. Just let Ben Ali go. We don't want it anymore. So this is a very specific example, and it definitely reflects what I'm trying to say here. It's a very economic basic. It's about food. It's about affording stability. And this is the main goal of Tunisian. They were trying to target this goal.
What do you mean affording stability? Because you have money, the state can take it away tomorrow if you have no rights, if you have no freedoms. You can lose it tomorrow. The state can bulldoze your house. Where are your guarantees that you can have an investment in this society and keep it?
Okay.
Unless you have the rule of law behind that. Where are the guarantees?
The rule of law is a must, I agree with you. But when we
But it doesn't come after, it comes first.
On the short run, look what's happening. We are definitely earning on freedom, but we are not earning, and we are not earning on stability. And what
but the government says it's now going to prioritize the economy.
What I believe is more important right now is getting the economic stability. This way we can invest into how we can teach our people and our next generation what is freedom is.
Well, the Prime Minister said they have prioritized politics.
If we go around this room, I'm sure we will have a different definition of what's freedom. Ask every single person, what's freedom for you? And how can you quantify it? Those are very basic questions that we should ask ourselves. Well, economic stability, we could quantify it. We can say that we are able to afford, and this is the main point.
What you can afford, what you can buy in the supermarket is the main point of life. How much money, I come back to this, in your fat wallet, yeah?
It's a way of seeing things. I would not agree with that. But what I'm trying to say here is economic stability will come first. This is the only phrase that I agree with you, which is economic stability is first. Because if you are being able to get rid of the government debt, if you are being able to make a country prosperous, make an economy making money out of and being competitive with other countries, this way we can invest into things such as freedom.
Salim Musa, thank you. Thank you very much. Amna Gulali, you're against the motion. You think freedom is the great priority. Tell that to over 42% of Tunisian youth who now find themselves free to be unemployed, free to be poor. You think that's such a great advantage these days?
No, the way you are putting it is as if it was something new. Tunisians have experienced poverty and have experienced unemployment since before the
It's
revolution.
worse now.
It's worse,
It's worse.
but it's not something that is
15%
new.
unemployment across the board compared to 13 before the revolution. It's worse.
It's worse, but it's not something new. And poverty and unemployment were there before Ben Ali. The only thing that is new...
120,000 foreign
Let me
firms
just finish
left
my
the country.
sentence.
No,
The only thing which is new is that the veneer of stability and the veneer of prosperity that was existing under Ben Ali and the Ben Ali regime has now been lifted. And we see the reality. We see that this reality is really terrible. We see that very large shrinks of Tunisian society, very large parts of Tunisian society have lived under poverty, under the minimum that they need in order to live. And this has existed also under Ben Ali. So I think this way of opposing freedom and stability, freedom and prosperity is just a false dichotomy.
You can't eat freedom. You can't put
it's
it on the
just a false
table.
dichotomy. Even
you can't cook it, can you?
No, you can't
You
cook
can't
it.
use it to put a roof over your head.
You can't cook it, but you can't cook it either with just an authoritarian regime. You can't cook.
Why not? Why not? They're doing quite well in the countries that I mentioned.
No, I don't think so. I think in the countries you mentioned, only a very small, and this is very generally the situation in most of the countries that are authoritarian, a very small oligarchy, a very small elite of the country is benefiting from the wealth and from the natural resources of a country.
But Gulali, listen to this. Listen to this. The UAE is much admired by the rest of the Arab world. The UAE, which doesn't have a shred of democracy or freedom or human rights. There was a poll which was done by Burson Mastel in April last year. They polled 3,000 Arab nationals across the region, aged 18 to 24, and they asked them which country they would most like their own country to resemble. Top of the list, the UAE, without a shred of rights. So much for the values that you say are important to people. The Arabs are not interested.
I think the Arab opinion is anyways volatile. If you ask it this same question somehow in a different context, in a different situation, they might answer something different. And I think
that's to diminish the answers they've already given.
I think what we need
you're just nitpicking here.
What we need to stick to is just think about, and I agree with Salim only on that point, is stick to Tunisia, see what the Tunisian people think about that, and see whether they think that they have to relinquish freedom for some kind of false stability, which does not exist.
Okay, well, I'll give you an example. I'll give you a Tunisian example here. One of the political parties did private polls about how interested people were in the constitution. Something that's taken up a lot of space and a lot of time since the revolution. Yes. You know what the figure was, people who were interested in the Constitution? It was 3%. Yeah. 3% of the population.
It's a learning process, I think.
That's all.
Yeah. I don't think it reflects...
The freedoms, the rights contained in that Constitution.
The scope of what people think about this Constitution. I think they have followed very closely all the debates that were aired on the television. Some people were really enthralled by those debates. Of course, the situation,
3%.
The situation of the economy...
3%.
Yeah. Well, I don't really believe only in polls. I think there are other ways to measure the opinions of people. I think when you live here, when you know what happened after the adoption of the Constitution, when people were like just kissing each other, embracing each other because there was such a big achievement. I think this reflects also the reality.
Because people were kissing and hugging each other, you take that as a backup for your argument? I think you need a few more facts than a few kisses and hugs, to be honest. You know?
Well,
I'll give you one fact about Tunisia at the moment, where you say people are so keen on freedom. According to a Pew survey, which was done in March this year, over 40% of Tunisians support censorship of the internet, government censorship of the internet. There's your commitment to freedom, to free speech. 40%, almost half the country, wants the government to censor the internet.
I don't think
they're not buying your values.
No, I think it's a learning process. I think most of the people that have experienced this revolution, and you know that when the revolution started, the slogans that were there were not only about economic development. They were not about the unemployment only. They were about dignity and they were about freedom. And I think many people are still clinging to those values, and they are very much supportive of the idea that Tunisia has become somehow one of the leading country in the region for that, and they take pride.
You think they're clinging to values that are in retreat all across the world? Freedom House says that in 2013 was the 8th successive year in which global freedom declined. It declined because why? It doesn't protect the weak. It doesn't stop corrupt governments. It doesn't secure you a minimum wage. It doesn't look that good these days,
but
does it?
neither does the other situation or the other scenario.
Okay, so take the people who offer you most money then. Take the money and run.
No, I don't think most people
If all the politicians are corrupt in the dictatorships and in the democracies, take the one that offers you most money. Why shouldn't they?
In a democracy, at least, you can fight for your rights. You can go to courts if the courts are functioning.
If you had a meal that day, if you had a meal that day and you're strong enough.
It's not the ideal word. I agree that it's not the ideal word, that democracy or a country that abides by the rule of law also have problems, that they have also to face some kind of challenges, but that's much better, I think, for most people to know that they can be claiming those rights and that they can go in order to make them implemented.
Let me put it to you that it's really only money that gives you a degree of independence because it allows you to buy the things and the people that you want in life. That's the only thing that makes you a free person these days.
Well, it depends what you are talking about, because you are talking on the personal level here, and I'm talking about the situation of a country who has undergone, and of a region who has undergone a very huge transformation, where things are not stable anymore, of course, but things are becoming more stable, where the economy obviously has become very weak, but things are also moving in the right direction, at least in Tunisia. So I don't think opposing those two sides is a good way to do it, and also not on the personal level. If you ask me, I would say on the personal level that money is not everything.
Okay, we're going to leave it. We're going to leave it there.
Different.
We're going to have plenty of time to go into these arguments. We're going to have plenty of time to go into these arguments more. We're going to leave it there for the moment. We're going to start taking some questions from the audience. Let me just remind you of the motion: prosperity and stability are more important than freedom. Please put your hand up if you have a question. The speaker, and we'll get a microphone to you. Gentleman in the blue shirt over there. I think you were first.
My question is for Mr. Salim. Let's imagine that I have food and I have money, but we live in a very prosperous country. There is no freedom. Will you be free to speak and say that you are hungry?
Will you have the freedom of speech to complain about being hungry if you're in a dictatorship?
I mean, will you survive?
Okay.
If you're not free to say that you're hungry?
You would not survive, but that's why money is worth more than freedom. If you have money, you can buy food.
So how do you look after the people who don't have anything in your society?
So you represent the society. You are part of the society. And we all share this wealth. I'm definitely against any dictatorship. And I'm definitely for like a government being instituted and being in place. And what I'm trying to say, you have to work hard. If you are hungry, you have to work hard to get to that, to earn that money. And in addition, if it's a loop. If you have money, you're gonna buy stuff, and that money is gonna be going around through so many people. So the wealth will be created in a country level, and this could be definitely rise up the expectation of.
Just a second.
Yes, go ahead.
If in a country, if you have the freedom of speech, everybody will benefit from that, from the freedom of speech.
Yes.
But you cannot guarantee that all the population have food. That's the difference.
His point is rights are available to everybody, but food isn't.
Okay.
And that's why they're more important.
Whether like it or not, we live in equality just for the fact that people are wealthier than others. So you will not be able to provide, if somebody is hungry, you will not be able to provide him with food. He has to work for himself to be able to make that extra bucks to pay for his food. So my point is that money definitely is important for the person to be able to help the society. Definitely, if you spend your money between six or seven people, you will definitely spread your wealth. So definitely, you will be able to spread that wealth to everybody.
To people who already have it.
Yes.
Amna Gulali, want to come in here?
I think it's a very valid point, and it's one which shows that this dichotomy that we are trying to establish between freedoms and prosperity is really a false one, and that people who are in dictatorships, usually very large parts of the society cannot express their anger, they cannot express their fear, they cannot express anything. And they are usually even more suppressed than in other, if they suffer, they would suffer in a democracy, but they would suffer even more in a dictatorship. Because look at all the places where countries are very wealthy, but it's only a small part of the society that benefit from this wealth. And those who are in the situation...
You say that, but China has successfully taken millions of people out of poverty, whereas in India, a so-called democracy, the wealth gap is getting wider and wider.
I'm not sure where you are taking those...
Which works? Which
no,
works?
I'm not sure this is a real characterization of the situation, of the difference between China and India. I think they are
Tell me what's wrong with it then.
I think they are both facing a situation of, you know, a very important population that needs to be fed and needs to be, they need to get employment. The only problem is that China is having a huge crackdown on everybody, but not only on those who are expressing their opinions, even on the workers. The workers cannot do anything in China. They are being suppressed. They are being, of course, they might have some small, you know, work, but that does not mean that they are happy. That does not mean that they are...
They just went on strike, but we're going to have another question. Gentleman just there. No, behind you. I promise I'll come to you.
Thank you, Tim. My name is Abdul Wahab. And I agree with the two debaters here about the unfair comparison between South Africa and Tunisia or Dubai and Tunisia. But if you compare countries, same countries, that you're talking about Tunisia today going through political reform, but not economic reform, and so you're not getting to prosperity. But if you take Spain or Central and Eastern Europe and you see what happened before and after institutional, political, and economic reforms, would you rather live in Czech Republic before or after the freedoms, the institutional reform? And you have to have them together, I agree with you, but you have to have freedom. You have to have political freedom, and you have to have economic freedom.
So freedom comes first, as far as you're concerned?
Both, economic and political freedom. Without both, you can't have either.
Do you agree with that?
I agree. I said since the beginning that I think it's really a false opposition. I think they are both needed, they are both intertwined, and that in most of the countries, the wealthy countries which have a democracy, freedom and prosperity went hand in hand, and they were able to combine both. So I don't think there is anything inherently opposing the two sides. I think they can... I mean, freedom is also a way for people to, you know, have initiatives, economic initiatives, start making some new ideas, build networks, etc. And it's a way to also bolster the economy. It's not something which is in opposition.
I want to come back to the question for a moment, and I want to ask you, if you'd stand up, please,
yes,
whether you think that the government here, the authorities here, were wrong to prioritize politics and come to the economic reforms afterwards. I mean, were they wrong to do it that way round?
I don't want to characterize it as wrong, but it's a natural thing after a revolution. First things you want to talk about, even Western countries, developed countries, talk about elections, political parties, developing the parliaments, working on constitutions. We tend to neglect the freedoms that are necessary for economic prosperity. So,
Isn't that why Tunisia today looks so much more healthy than any other Arab country that has been involved in the Arab Spring? Because it did prioritize the politics,
I mean,
the freedoms.
These are intrinsic characteristics of what Tunisia is. So the fact that Tunisia succeeded it's not just because of the steps they've taken, it's because of where they were before the revolutions happened. So if you can put that aside. But what I'm disagreeing with here is identifying prosperity as political freedom, as economic wealth only. Prosperity is about political freedom and economic freedom at the same time. Prosperity is the ability to have money and then the ability to spend it as you want to spend it, without anybody pushing you how to spend it. Both are necessary for prosperity,
Okay.
economic and political freedom.
Salim Musa,
Yes.
would Tunisia be in the relatively happy position it's in today relative to other Arab Spring countries if it had not prioritized the politics as opposed to the economics?
I agree with Amna when she said that those things go hand in hand, for sure. And I definitely am 100% support of this idea. However, what I think is that economically speaking, we are definitely earning experience in freedom, and we are not yet educated to be well accustomed what freedom is. So I think what the government should have done is definitely focus more on the economical side than the freedom side, because this is definitely something that they are accustomed, that they earned before during the Ben Ali era, but what was left during the Ben Ali era is that there was no freedom and there was a dictatorship, and that wealth that was the country that was making talking about GDP or unemployment or inflation, we were able to be a bit in a better position. So what I'm trying to say here is just focus on your strength rather trying to focus on something new that you have no experience in. And so you would rather focus first on...
People may not know when they're free, but they certainly knew that they weren't before. They certainly knew that they weren't free. So to tell them they don't know what freedom is, they certainly know what not being free is.
Yes.
And we're determined not to go back to that.
Yes,
and to put in place the safeguards
I could
that
add
would prevent
also
that
that
happening.
people are feeling more free than before now, because they could express, so they definitely see the difference. So they are definitely a little bit more free, but...
But Amna Gulali, that's why things are better here, isn't it? Because freedom was prioritized?
I think it's a very complex situation in Tunisia, and I think there is no clear-cut or one-sided answer to why did we succeed. I think there are several...
so far.
So far, of course, it's all very fluctuant and very volatile, but I think so far it was a success because of various conditions, because of various underlying also strength of the Tunisia landscape. But I think definitely the fact that after the transition, after the revolution or the fall of the regime, there was a very big need to refound the whole society, to have a new foundation, a new political foundation, was definitely something that helped Tunisia. And the fact that there was kind of a dialogue between all the different parts of the society, this dialogue was not possible under Ben Ali. It was not possible to come, well, there was some attempts, but they were all quelled. So there was this...
So how much freedom do you think you won here in the last 3 years? How much freedom?
I think it's a work in progress. I think there is a lot of freedom, at least from the freedom of speech side and freedom of association, freedom of assembly. I think those are very important foundations and bedrock-like foundations for
I want to
for
ask
the Tunisian
some people in the
and
audience.
From that we can build, maybe.
I want to ask some people in the audience the same question. We'll get a microphone to you. If you could just give us some quick answers, how much freedom you think has been won. Who would like to start? Gentleman in the pink shirt.
I would say probably 10 out of 10 for freedom of the press. I would say 8 out of 10 for freedom of association. And
so pretty high marks.
Yeah,
then
very high marks for those two. The problem here is that we don't have the real independence between the judiciary, the executive, and the parliament, right? And until you have those kinds of separations of power, you will not have real freedom.
Okay, but it was right to do the politics first?
Excuse me?
It was right to do the politics first?
I believe so.
Okay, could you hand the microphone to the lady next to you? Do you have a view on this? How much freedom do you think Tunisians have won in the last 3 years?
To be fair, I'm not Tunisian, and I wasn't following the depths of Tunisian politics prior to the revolution. I've only been here since November, so I can only give you my perspective after that. But I think there's been a significant amount of freedoms. One, for women in receiving parity. I mean, there's a lot of really positive changes in freedom that other Arab countries and a lot of Western countries are taking note of.
Amna Gulali, you want to come
here
here?
Because I think there is a very important, maybe comparison to make with one of our neighboring countries, which is Algeria, where you have a wealthy country which has like billions of dollars in its stock, and which could afford to all of the people that live in Algeria, which are not that, you know, like it's 35 million people, they could afford to make them live in prosperity, but they don't. And there are large amounts of the society, all the people who live and work in the south, in the mining area and in the gas oil place, where they wanted to make some demonstrations and go in front of the, you know, like the gas oil companies or in front of the government building and express their concerns about their situation, their life, their wages, and they are being suppressed very, very, very strongly. So this shows that this idea of stability, of wealth, that could be, that could make us live happy and not care about freedom is really not.
Okay, all right.
Is not the,
Salim
the right
Musa.
one.
Okay, I think when we talk about Algeria, let's take another example, which we are more accustomed with, which is Tunisia. Before, during the Ben Ali era, the country was prosperous. It was pretty much wealthy for a country that does not have any natural resources. I'm talking about the government as the country, the whole country. So the issue was definitely censorship and dictatorship and nepotism. So those were definitely the reason. The issue was that money was not really spread evenly to every single person in the country. So that's why we did not have the freedom to tell the government that this is not right, or to demonstrate, or to go on the street. So
freedom is the essential ingredient that changes everything, doesn't it?
It is one of the tools. I'm just saying that's one of the tools. If you wanna achieve.
But it's not a tool you can use once and then throw away.
I'm not trying to throw away, but I'm just saying.
That's what you do with tools. I'm talking about foundations. I'm talking about freedom being the foundation on which you build the structure of your society.
It's between many other foundations. It's definitely, freedom is one of the foundation, but it's not the only foundation.
So you accept now that it's a foundation, at least. Okay. Quick word.
Quick word. Very quick. It's comparing like the situation before with the Ben Ali regime. I just read a study from the World Bank saying that $13 billion of the money of Tunisia was in the hands and in the pockets of the former regime and his family. So it's 1/3 of the wealth of the country went into the hands of one part, small part of the society.
That's exactly what I said.
And this shows,
the money is not well
and nobody
spread.
could speak about that. Nobody could say any word about that.
But now you can, and now you have. All right, I'm going to take some more views. Gentleman in the second row there. You can get a microphone. And the baseball cap, yeah.
Hello. How do you think that a government that suppresses people and puts freedom in the second place, not in a priority, that sees their people unworthy of freedom to get them to prosperity? How do you think that's possible?
I said that during the Ben Ali era was not a good example, definitely. I'm not saying that, that during the Ben Ali era was the best. Our motion here is what is more important. Both sides are important. We have to definitely emphasize on this. I'm not saying that freedom is not important or economic stability is not important. I'm saying what is more important than the other. So we need to get this straight.
So say you prioritize your economy, how are you then going to get from your state of prosperity to the freedoms? How do you get those freedoms?
It's definitely the government has to invest this money that they earned into workshops, into educating people more about what's freedom.
Well, how can they when there's no pressure, when they don't allow any free speech, when they don't allow pressure from below? Nobody can complain because they don't have those rights as the #1 foundation in their society.
it definitely goes hand in hand. But look at the situation right now. Tunisians are free. And we are definitely, it's at the cost of the economic stability. So we are also like, the freedom is very, it's very important to understand that the freedom is a dual blazer. It works both sides. It could be beneficial, but it could also be a very hard cost on the economy.
Okay, we're going to take a question from the lady behind you there.
My name is Rahma. I want to ask Ms. Emna, do you think that we can talk about freedom and democracy before having a cultural revolution? Because here, the common understanding of freedom is to do whatever you want without responsibilities, which leads to chaos.
If we don't have a cultural revolution, I think cultural revolution is something that needs to be built. I think there is education
It needs to be what, sorry?
built. It's something that needs to evolve. I think it's a work in progress. I think the fact that there is a niche and there is an opening for freedoms will definitely help people to understand and to adjust to the situation. Obviously, I think there is, in freedom, there are limits. It doesn't mean that there is a willingness to have chaos. Freedom is also regulated, even on the international level. There are all kind of norms to regulate the freedoms and the rights of people, and especially that these rights should not be used in order to infringe on other people's rights or on the stability and the situation of the...
Okay, I want to go back to the questioner for a moment, and if you could just stand up again. What was behind your question? Are you afraid that there was too much freedom to start with? It was too chaotic here in Tunisia after the revolution?
Because everyone thinks that freedom is to do whatever you want, and there's no responsibilities. And
you feel that people have a lack of responsibility here in Tunisia?
yes, because it's true, because you can see it on the TV or on the street. Freedom for them is to attack the other person who is different.
So you'd like a bit more of that firm dictator's hand back again, would you?
But that's a good point that she's pointing. That's what I said earlier. I said that the definition of freedom is hard because if you go around this room, everyone will have a different meaning of freedom and a different way of acting. So during these days, it seems like a bit chaotic, the way how freedom is expressed in our country.
I'm going to take another view. Gentleman over there. Yes, you.
I would like to ask Mrs. Emna about freedom. Just after the revolution, we got the freedom that we asked about on our hand. And on the other hand, we lost the social security, the political security, and even the national security. We lost many things on the other hand. So you don't think that we gave up too much for freedom?
I don't think we gave up too much for freedom. I think it is a difficult situation. I think any revolution and any situation of upheaval like the one we went through is a very difficult situation. It comes with a lot of anxiety, but it will need a little bit of time. So far, Tunisia is still very stable compared to other places, and even compared to before. Even before, there was some instability in the sense that there were also some terrorist attacks. Don't forget that there were also terrorist attacks under the former regime that were quelled because there was such a repression on a large scale that did the job basically at the end. But I think there is quite an equation. It's a difficult equation, but it's an equation that could be found, I think.
I'd like you, if possible, to answer your own question. Do you think that Tunisians gave up too much for freedom?
Yeah, I think so.
What does anybody else think? Does anybody else share that view, that Tunisians gave up too much for the sake of freedom? Can you ever give up too much for the sake of freedom? Gentleman over there in the baseball hat? Yeah.
I think the way we're using freedom and abusing it, yes, I think we're going into a civil war actually, because everyone is abusing freedom. Everyone wants to be free, but he doesn't acknowledge that the other one is also free and he's free to express his mind.
So you think there should be more responsibilities attached?
Yeah, there should be more
freedom?
responsibilities, yeah, definitely. And, excuse me, I have a question for Mrs. Amna, which I want to ask.
Okay, go ahead.
Do you think in Tunisia, right now, let's talk away from all idealistic principles or something, in Tunisia after 6 months, would you believe that freedom is good when we are actually bankrupt and we have nothing to pay our employees and we are out of money or I don't know, and in debt? Do you think that's actually freedom is the thing to focus on right now?
I think it's always very easy to bring up these very doomsday scenarios in order to, in order to get away from the struggle.
It's not a doomsday scenario,
is it? It is a doomsday scenario.
The economic problems are very real.
I've been hearing
the economic problems are real. You know that.
I've been hearing about, but we are talking about bankruptcy. I've been hearing about Tunisians' bankruptcy. Every single month, there is someone who says there will be a bankruptcy, and it doesn't happen. So I don't see why we are only focusing on these doomsday scenarios while there are other solutions. I think what we need to do is to build this stability, is to build this economy, rebuild it. And we won't rebuild it if we don't have the freedoms to do it.
Okay.
Because nobody is going to also lend us some,
I want to let the questioner come back and react to that. Does that answer your question as far as you're concerned? Could you stand up again, please?
Yeah. First, I think it's a doomsday scenario because the former Minister of Finance and the current and the actual Prime Minister talked about it realistically and warned people about it. Okay. I'm a humanitarian. I believe in freedom and in human rights. But sometimes we need to step aside and take some time and focus on priorities. There are priorities that we should focus on.
Okay, all right. Salim Moussa.
Okay, we have been focusing a lot on Tunisia, but about freedom in Tunisia. Let's look to other countries. Let's pick Libya or pick Syria. I
thought you didn't like comparisons with other
countries.
No,
we are talking about Arabs, so here I think it's a good comparison. If we look around and we see those countries, definitely people felt free. But let's see the cost now. It's almost a civil war if it's not called civil war, whether it's in Syria or in Libya. So this is a good way of seeing what is the limit of freedom. How can we quantify it? It's more qualitative data than quantity data.
So where do you stand on what the gentleman in the audience said, that we should step back a little bit from freedom and concentrate on a bit more order?
I agree with him. I think to be able to do that, we need to educate people.
I want to just react to that, to what Salim said about the examples that he was giving to show that there is, when you get more freedom, then it's chaos. I think what went wrong in the Syria and the Libya examples are not freedoms, because if the Syrian regime had relinquished power and just stopped clinging to power, there would be freedom and there would be stability. What set Syria in the wrong direction and spread and sparked all this bloodshed is the fact that they cling to power. So it has nothing to do with freedom. It has nothing to do with the fact that there was freedom. And the Libyan example is also different, completely different from that.
Okay, there's a lady right at the back in the hijab. Yeah.
You've brought up two examples in the Arab world, and I'll bring up two examples myself. Primarily in the UAE, where most of their citizens are quite prosperous, yet when it comes to dissent, the repression has been really severe, especially of late. And there's been examples of the UAE in '94, people calling for reformation who have been jailed, not being able to see any of their family, tortured, and not even face any hearings. And anyone who tweets any kind of dissent in these regions have also been jailed. Would you still say that freedom is less important than economic stability, given that you've just given two examples of Arab countries, so you can't use the Tunisia card anymore?
The UAE, so the two examples that I picked are very specific. And those countries are definitely part of the Arab Spring. So they definitely are, we are seeing definitely this on television, seeing how people are trying to express their freedom. It's definitely going off hands. And so this is why I think that the UAE is not a good fit to the example that I brought, because it's not definitely part of the Arab Spring. This is my first point. My second point is I'm not supportive of any dictatorship. This is just to clarify that, during the Ben Ali era, I'm not supportive of what he did. So I think that what applied to Tunisia before is the same what is going on right now in the UAE.
Do you want to come back on that? Do you think you got an answer to your question?
Not really, because at the end of the day, the spring is affecting all the countries, whether they've revolted or not. They are affecting the Middle East. You have Saudi Arabia, they may not have revolted, but there have been online protests of people showing their ID cards, showing, I'm not even Shia, I'm definitely a Sunni, I'm definitely even tribal, and I'm not liking what's going on in the government, and they've been jailed. So it's not about who we constitute as like the spring countries. It's actually something in the Middle East. So, and they are Arab examples that we can use.
We'll take another question. Gentleman in the second row there.
My question goes to Mr. Selim. I don't agree with what you've said, because basically, if you put the economic prosperity and stability first, we will end up reducing a whole society mainly to basic needs. I mean, to food and shelter. But and you have to put that in consideration that in Tunisia we have the highest literacy in the Arab world. I mean, we have an educated middle class, so they do not really need to eat only or find a job. The revolution was not mainly for food, it was for basic rights, I mean, like civil rights and political rights. So it does not make sense to put.
Yeah.
You mentioned that we have high literacy in Tunisia, and you mentioned that Tunisians are educated. Do you think Tunisians are educated about their rights and their do's and don'ts? Do you think that Tunisians know what's the meaning of freedom? This is definitely a question to ask ourselves as well. How could we know what's freedom? We need definitely to educate ourselves about freedom.
Lady over there, you had a question.
Actually, I just want to make a quick remark, because it seems that everybody is saying that Tunisians have had too much freedom. And this scares me a lot, because there is nothing as too much or too little. Either you are free or you are not. But I can understand that actually they mean that there were so many demands after the revolution. And this scares me as well, because the problem is not that Tunisians are having too much freedom. The problem is that they cannot trust that they will be free for so long. So they think this is like a vacuum of dictatorship, and they want to make the best out of it, and they want to get as much as possible, and we can understand that. And
doesn't it take time to readjust?
Of course it does. I mean, it takes time. It
hasn't been very long. It's only been 3 years.
First of all, 3 years, and second, I really blame all of the politicians, because they were actually helping the people making more demands and forgetting about practicing and participating in making the decisions. So somehow it's like, this is a bless, and let's give a little bit to everybody. And all of the Tunisians, because of all the history, because of all this dictatorship, all through histories, I'm not talking about the Ben Ali era only. So somehow they do not trust that this freedom is going to last for long. And this is really alarming.
So what should have been done differently, in your view? What should have been done?
There should have been more participation from the citizens. There should have been more honest dialogue with everybody saying, that's what we can. Nobody dares telling any people on strike, I am really sorry, I cannot actually give you what you ask for. Because we have had, most of the governments, they just wanted to please the people without really opening this honest dialogue. It's like you have a spoiled child and you are giving in. Whereas what we need to do is to trust the people and let them think that this freedom is, they deserve it, it's their right, and they need actually to learn how to be free in reality.
Okay, there was a lady there. Yes, you. Can we get a microphone to you?
Hi, I'm Nadia, and I'm addressing both Mr. Salim and Mrs. Emna. So my question is, you say that economy should be put or should be a priority to all citizens with no exceptions. And you said that people should be more innovative and help boost the economy. But in a so-called democratic country, let's say, how can people help innovate and boost the economy if they are still striving for a better living conditions? If they ever get employed, they are still suffering from poor working conditions and unemployment even.
All right, you made your point. We're going to take that last question. Amna Gulali.
Let me turn the question, reverse it, because how can they...
Don't sidestep it, okay?
No, I won't.
It was a very
sidestep
direct
it.
question.
I won't sidestep it, but if you reverse it, we will not be able to solve this question, because obviously there are problems also in situations where you have freedom, you have democracy, but you have unemployment. It's definitely not, I'm not saying that freedom should be prevailing over all other values. I'm saying that it's one of the foundations. It's an important foundation, and it shouldn't be stepped aside or left aside or sidelined, because if you take that off from people, then they won't be able to also, and I didn't say that they should, I said that freedom allows the innovation, that it allows the enterprise, that it allows people to create something new, create some new values, and in different ways. It's not only in one way. Whereas if you live under a dictatorship, you are not allowed to do anything. So it's a matter of balance. It's not something
Let's hear
very...
from the questioner. Where do you stand on that? Do you accept the answer?
Well, actually, it's a 50-50 situation, I guess, because the way I look at it, I find that freedom is the one that should be prioritized, you know?
Okay, lady in the front row then. We've got a question to you.
This is really a comment. It's not really a question, but it's just to say that the Tunisian society is going through an evolution, and it's like on Maslow's pyramid, you know, you have to have your stomach full in order to be able to express, you know, to be able to really think about the freedom of speech. Or I'm sure you've heard so many people around you saying, "Oh, it was better, you know, under Ben Ali's era."
Is that what you think?
No, that's not what I think. But I heard people saying that, and saying that the prices were lower. You know, they could buy things with, you know, with less money, and really, I mean, it just makes you think. And I think it's.
Does it worry you that people think that way?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, because I think it's just a matter of maturity. It's through all the experiences that we are going through.
Does it mean there are more losers or winners from the revolution?
No.
There are more winners.
There are more winners. I think we're going through a really positive evolution, and I think we're going there. And it's just going to take some time. It's just going to take some years.
All right. Okay. We're coming, ladies and gentlemen, to the end of the debate. Before I ask you to vote for the final time, I'm just going to go to each of the speakers and ask them for one quick sentence before the vote takes place to crystallize your views. Amna Gulali, one quick sentence before the audience votes.
I would like to quote Walter Benjamin, who said that when people relinquish their freedom for some stability, they will lose both.
Salim Musa, one quick sentence, please.
Let's look around and see what freedom has cost us. The fact that freedom was not with no moral responsibility. We have been going through through a lot of economic hardship. So we need definitely to focus a lot on economic hardship before stepping freedom in front.
All right, thank you very much indeed. I'm going to remind you of the motion that prosperity and stability are more important than freedom. If you agree with that statement, if you accept that, would you please raise your hands and keep them there until we've counted you? Okay. If you are against that motion and you feel that freedom is more important than prosperity and stability, would you now raise your hands and keep them up, please? Let me just remind you that this debate is going to be shown on a variety of different channels around the world through the DW network, which is broadcast from Berlin, and their partner channels. You'll also be able to watch it on our website, www.newarabdebates.com. Okay, all right. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the final vote we have. For the motion, 17%. Against the motion, 83%. The motion has been resoundingly defeated. Let me just point out how you voted before, which was 23% for the motion and 77% against. So those who are against the motion have increased their vote by 6%. 6%. So all it remains for me to do now is to thank our distinguished speakers. Thank you very much for being here tonight. Thank you to you, the audience, for your participation. The New Arab Debates will be back again in a month's time. Till then, from all of us on the program, have a safe journey home. Thanks very much for coming tonight. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.